You ate my chips? What do you mean you ate my chips? But I'm hungry. You won't like me when I'm hungry. Marvel's The Hulk has become one of the best mainstream books out there today, with its sharp writing, gorgeous art, and dark tone. Relaunching in 2018 as The Immortal Hulk, with a twist that the Hulk can no longer die due to some mysterious green door, the series has turned the entire Gamma world on its head by leaning into the horror vibe that goes way back to this character's roots. I am a big fan of this book, and today we are gonna do some fan art. What is up, guys? Andrew here, and welcome to Comicbooker, all things comics from a creator. The Immortal Hulk just finished its latest and greatest story arc, with a giant-sized, super spectacular anniversary issue, which pit the Hulk against the original Hulk, a super creepy Jack Kirby creation named Semnu. No spoilers, but it was a beast of an issue, with a crazy twist at the end, which I just did not see coming. It was so great. Today, I'm gonna be drawing the Immortal Hulk fighting Semnu using Procreate on the iPad Pro. And I'm gonna walk you through the whole process and talk a little bit about Joe Bennett's art for the Immortal Hulk and what lessons we can take away from that. Let's get started. So usually when I'm faced with a blank sheet of paper, I try to think on the paper. So whatever it is I'm visualizing, I just immediately jump in and I start really loose, just taking the line for a walk. And I think in curves and swirls and loops and squiggles, just trying to capture the energy of whatever it is I'm thinking about. And usually that image in my head is very soft, but I don't worry too hard about that because this is only the first layer. And eventually I'm gonna lower the opacity on that and work over it with a tighter drawing. And it becomes something that I repeat several times, kind of like an extended roughs into penciling phase, where I add elements and I refine shapes and I tweak positions, so that over time it's like a photo that develops. It goes from something really soft into something really crisp and clear. This is really the joy and the curse of digital art, where you could just noodle with it infinitely. It also allows me to go very quickly because I don't want to be thinking too hard at any one stage. I just want to be flowing with the image and letting it develop in front of me, because if I overthink it, it's going to come out clinical and stunted. So I just try to keep a good groove on it. It's like playing music, or you want to keep up to the tempo of the thing that you're creating. The other reason to go fast when I'm doing pencils and when I'm doing roughs is it allows me to stop myself from really noodling and refining something to the point where it becomes so finished, because I want to reserve all the finishing moves for when I'm doing my inks. If I do all the drawing work and I don't leave any room for improvisation later on, then inking gets really boring. It becomes less inking and more like tracing. And I want to enjoy that process and keep everything as interesting for me as possible while I'm working on it. Before we start with inks, let's take a look at our inspiration. Joe Bennett is the main artist of Immortal Hulk. He hails from Brazil and has had an extensive career in comics, from Spider-Man to Teen Titans to DC's 52 series and even Alan Moore's Supreme. Along with inker Rui Jose and colorist Paul Mounts, his art on Immortal Hulk has been nothing short of spectacular, telling the dark story with tons of clarity and style. A key element of Bennett's style that I wanted to focus on for this video is his use of cross-contour lines, sometimes called form contour lines. These are lines that flow across the form, creating the illusion of both tone and depth. This technique uses a lot of tiny little lines to render shadow, but the lines also have to follow the various surfaces in the drawing, bending and curving with the subject matter. It's a really impressive artistic tool when it's done well, that goes back to the works of Bernie Wrightson, John Totleben, and Albrecht Dürer, allowing the artist to showcase their understanding of form while creating this specific mood for their art. So now that I have a reasonably detailed pencil drawing that I can work from, I use this as a guideline to really start focusing on getting final line work out of this drawing. My initial focus is to get all the major forms down, which means making sure all the outlines and contours are drawn in. These are gonna give me the overall structure of the piece and give me space and room to do all the little rendering tricks I want to do later on. The overall shapes at this stage should flow and be pleasing to my eye. My next move is to fill in large areas of pure black, and this is going to be in the shadow areas, which does several things. One, it gives my drawing an overall sense of contrast and punch, and two, it nails down my overall value scale. If on one end of the spectrum I have the pure white of the paper, this gives me the other end of the spectrum, and thus all the rendering things I do from this point forward kind of negotiate the space between these two. And finally, it's time to come in with the cross contour lines. And I reach out from the shadows that I've defined and use these lines to curve around forms. And at this point, I'm really thinking about the classic geometric forms of the sphere, the cylinder, the box, and break down really every single part of the drawing in order to understand just how the lines are going to flow across this form. For example, the Hulk's muscles give you a lot of opportunity because it's basically a collection of lots of little forms that I can move across with these cross contour lines. Moving on to Semnu, this creature is mostly covered in long flowy hair, so I use the cross contour lines in a vertical direction to really mimic how the hair is flowing across his body, which is very influenced by gravity. So I'm doing a lot of long flowy lines and I'm spacing them relatively evenly, but every so often there's going to be an overlap here or there just to mimic a sense of like hair and fur. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to remember while working on this, is that I need to leave large areas for light to come in and places where I can flex a little color work later on, because this drawing is meant to be in color. And this technique is just very seductive and really fun to do, but you could definitely overdo it. So I keep it to places where it's appropriate. When I'm done, I just review the entire drawing and make sure that it's a pleasing black and white image first. And once I know it has that good balance of light and darks and has a clear drawing that is enjoyable to the eye, then I can move forward and start working on some colors. So my coloring process is really pretty standard, which means I start with a flatting stage, laying in large areas of flat color that I can easily select later on for rendering. Once that's done, I take it one color block at a time. Basically, I work on rendering the Hulk skin, making sure there's some nice shadows flowing over that, and then I move on to Semnu's hair, and then to other parts of the drawing, more specific parts. For this one, I'm using Max Ulichney's watercolor brushes to give kind of a grain and a texture to the shadows. I really like how the values layer in with this, and using that to give a kind of realistic color movement throughout the whole thing and avoid that very popular cel-shaded look that has really come into vogue in the last few years. I'm also using a complementary color scheme for this piece. So because I knew it was going to be about the Hulk, the other color that I'm going to play against it is on the opposite of the color wheel. It's red. And I use that as a big contrast to make the Hulk's green really pop. And over the whole thing, I use a lighter sense of red, which is like this eerie pink cast that overlays the entire drawing, harmonizes all the colors therein, and gives really the sense of Semnu's menace, because he's this scary, mind-controlling type of monster. When I draw like this, I try to just give myself a time limit, because this is fan art, you know, it's not a commission, it's not something I'm doing professionally, and I try not to go over 4 hours, because also I'm trying to think of this as a training exercise. Comics artists have to be fast, and if I can turn around an illustration in that amount of time, then I know I can do an even better one in a longer span of time. And honestly, I could just tweak this forever, but at a certain point, you have to call it done and then move on to the next piece. So here's the finished piece. I'm really happy with this. I like how it came out. Despite the time limit, I think I accomplished everything I set out to do. Particularly learn what Joe Bennett really does in his work and apply that to my own. That's all I have for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you got something out of it. If you want to see more videos, make sure you click that bell icon to get a notification when I upload a new one. I try to do videos every week, and yeah, have a good one. Stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy. And peace.
Better now?
Oh my god, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me.
Good. That was scary.
I'm so happy you still have chips.